Hanukkah's about courage, right? It's about how the Maccabees refused to give up and refused to give in. They refused to throw in the tallis. They fought the Assyrian oppressors and prevailed. That's how they themselves and their descendants described their deeds in the books that have been preserved for all time. But courage is more complicated than that. And I want to reflect with you today on 3 forms of courage that Judaism affirms. 1, physical courage. This is what most people think about first. Courage on the battlefield. Military courage is a remarkable thing to behold. One of the reasons is that deep down, we ask ourselves whether in life and death moments we would have that courage. And we think we know the answer. Or that we have sufficient enough doubts about ourselves so as to be awed when we see these qualities in others. Fear paralyzes and incapacitates human beings. In make or break moments, the brave soldier is the most critical person on the field. It's not that they are unafraid, but somehow they manage to overcome their fears while most cannot. They remain calm when almost everyone else loses their minds. The remarkable thing about them is their humility. If you ask them about their deeds, they will often tell you that they did nothing exceptional, nothing that anyone else would not have done in similar circumstances. They may possess ferocious instincts, but they tend to be quiet and introverted. Their calmness inspires others. Courage is as contagious as fear. One act can rally the troops and save the day. Israel's highest medal, the Medal of Valor, has been granted to only 40 people. I know 2 of them, both tank commanders, and had the great good fortune to spend a week with one of them, Avigdor Kahalani, the legendary tank battalion commander who stopped the Syrian army on the Golan Heights at the critical moment of the Yom Kippur War. Kahalani was a recently elected member of Knesset in the 1990s, and I invited 8 new MKs to the United States so that they could get to know American Judaism and the Reform movement. When I saw that Avigdor Kahalani accepted my invitation, couldn't believe my eyes. I counted down the days until the group arrived. I, too, was a tank commander, and Kahalani's name is magic in Israel, especially in the tank corps. He gave me his book describing the battles of the war and dedicated a message to me that I cherish and reread from time to time. He wrote, "From one tank commander to another." If it were only so. He described how his men had fought for 3 days nonstop and were vastly outnumbered by thousands of Syrian tanks in the beginning days of the war. They were hanging on by a thread. The only thing standing between the Syrians and the Galilee was the remnants of Kahalani's brigade. The crucial moment, perhaps the crucial moment in all of Israel's history, came on the 3rd day of the war. The battalion was under massive bombardment, and 1,000 Syrian tanks were powering towards the high ridge on the Golan Heights. It was a race to the ridge. If the Syrians got there first, Kahalani's tanks would have been sitting ducks and certain death, and behind them, nothing, just the Sea of Galilee. If the Israelis could get there first, the entire Syrian valley, they called it the Vale of Tears, opened up. And as Kahalani said, if we could manage to get to the ridge, nothing in the world would have moved us down from there. Repeatedly, he commanded, "Move, move." But his broken battalion was paralyzed by fear, and he found himself moving forward alone in his one tank. There were 50 yards to go, and the Syrian tanks were already popping up from behind the ridge. Kahalani's voice was then heard on all frequencies. "Just look at the Syrians' courage. Do I sense cowardice in this battalion? We are stronger than they are. Now start to move. Move!" After the war, the men of the 77th Battalion said that those words, in that calm and determined voice, and the sight of the 5'7" Avigdor Kahalani standing tall in the turret, waving the brigade's flag, as bombs fell all around, gave them the courage to move. The Israeli tanks got to the ridge first, literally seconds before the Syrians, and now, on the high ground, picked them off by the dozens. The battle, and maybe the war, were won in those moments. "Screw your courage to the sticking place," Lady Macbeth said to her husband. What a wondrous thing. Exceptional courage that stands unmoved in the face of death is a remarkable sight to behold. 2, while Judaism always valued courage on the battlefield, it was never enough. Macbeth's courage was employed in the service of murder, to kill the king. He was motivated by the false oracles of grandeur and was convinced that it was his destiny to usurp the rightful ruler. Physical courage is morally neutral. The sad truth, if we brush away all of the political rhetoric, is that terrorists can be courageous too. They are often willing to lay down their lives in the service of an idea, motivated, like Macbeth, by an extreme vision of grandeur and destiny. If only they were not courageous, it would be easier to deal with them. The sad truth is that those vicious terrorists who slaughtered 150 school children in Pakistan this week were willing to lay down their lives for a cause. And therefore, courage can be dangerous. History's villains were courageous too, but they were courageous for the wrong things. And hence, Judaism, while acknowledging and encouraging the exceptionality of courage on the battlefield, was always suspicious of this type of courage and always insisted that it be tethered to moral courage. Moral courage was even more important than courage on the battlefield. Mattathias rose up and killed the Assyrian, launching the rebellion, but the Hasmonean battles were vicious and brutal and soon turned on fellow Jews. That's why Talmudic sages shifted the emphasis of Hanukkah from the self-proclaimed and self-described bravery of the Maccabees to the divine miracle of the cruse of oil. The Maccabees never mentioned that. The well-worn phrase, "one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter," is at its core a cynical and even nihilistic view of the world. It's simply not true. There is right and wrong, good and evil, life and death, even if locating what is right, good, and life-affirming is often a complicated and uneven process. Moral courage is the courage that seeks justice. It is the courage to strive towards the light in dark times. It is the selflessness of the self, to stand up for what is right, to stand up for the principles that you believe in, even if you are afraid. Did someone say Sony Pictures? Moral courage is the courage to believe in peace and to preach peace when others let slip the dogs of war. Moral courage is the courage of Isaiah. They shall beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war no more. Moral courage is the courage of Hosea. I will banish the bow, sword, and war from the land. Moral courage is the courage to believe in change and transformation. Say to the house of Israel, I will give you a new heart, and a new spirit will I put within you. I will remove the heart of stone from your body and put inside of you a heart of flesh. Moral courage is the courage to unlock the fetters of wickedness and to untie the cord of bondage, to let the oppressed go free, to break off every yoke, to share your bread with the hungry, and to take the poor into your home and to clothe the naked. Moral courage is the courage to speak the truth. It is the courage to fight the lonely battle in the name of truth. As the Mishnah states, in a place where there are no men, be a man. Where there is no woman or no person to stand up, you stand up and speak the truth. 3, and then there is a third form of courage. It's what we all must do. The courage to hold on. The courage to get up every day, despite whatever loss, failures, pains, and ailments may afflict us, despite the crises of our lives, to get up and to live another day. It is the courage sometimes simply to get out of bed, no matter what, and to push on. The poet W.H. Auden said that one of his favorite examples of Jewish humor was the story of the great sage who, after a lifetime of contemplating human suffering, sighed, "Perhaps it would have been better not to have been born. But how many are so lucky? Maybe 1 in 1,000. This courage is the courage to hold on and to endure. It is the courage to find redemptive meaning and renewed strength in suffering. It is to go back to that Jerusalem synagogue that was smeared in blood the day before because it is time for the morning prayers. It is the courage to hope, to dream, to yearn, to believe in the future. Kipling said it beautifully. If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, if you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowance for their doubting too, if you can dream and not make dreams your master, if you can think and not make thoughts your aim, if you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two impostors just the same, if you can bear to hear the truth you've spoken twisted by knaves to make a trap for fools, or watch the things you gave your life to broken and stoop and build them with worn-out tools, if you can force your heart and nerve and sinew to serve your turn long after they are gone, and so hold on when there is nothing in you except the will which says to them, hold on. If you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run, yours is the earth and everything that's in it, and, which is more, you'll be a man, my son. Amen.